I suck at YouTube. I've never been a good YouTuber, but this is because I never wanted to be a YouTuber. When I was growing up, I wanted to be a director. And as a young kid, I ended up getting a video camera where I would make little crappy home movies and expected that this would be a career I could do when growing up. That, of course, never worked because I was in a very small town and I've never left. When AQ3D came out, there was very few people actually making videos on it, so I decided to help out the players of AQ3D by making content on it. But if you've seen any of my early videos, you can tell how uncomfortable I am on the microphone because I have never been a person to present myself in a public light. I'm an introvert, but YouTube has really helped me break out of that shell. The reason why I'm making this video is to help any upcoming YouTuber or maybe somebody who's trying to start a channel. I've made a lot of mistakes over the 8 or 9 years that I've been making YouTube videos, which I will be addressing some of them in this video, as well as showcasing some of the tools that I use for creating my content. The first mistake I made was sacrificing a lot of time that I could have been spending with my loved ones or other real life things that should have been priority over top of making my content. But the sole purpose of creating this channel and posting my videos was to help the Artix Entertainment community. Largely, AQ3D, when it first came out, had very few people actually making content. So I decided I was going to be helping out players by showcasing things and stuff that would help them out on their journey in AQ3D. Over the last few years, I've been making AQ World content as well, although that's more of a side content thing as I wait for Infinity, which I will definitely be covering a lot on this channel in the years to come. I will never abandon AQ3D, however, because that is what got me started, and I still have a huge passion for that game and its community. The second mistake I did was not upgrading my PC fast enough. My first content that I made was on a really crappy laptop, and the quality of my older videos show it. I couldn't even run AQ3D on high power. I could only run it on medium or low, so the quality of the videos I was posting was quite garbage, which didn't help because I had a really bad microphone as well. And this went on for probably a couple of years before I finally upgraded my PC. For people asking, can you make a lot of money making YouTube? Yeah, if you are viral. Another mistake that I wouldn't consider a mistake for myself, but others may, is I locked myself into one category: Artix Entertainment games. I haven't branched outside of Artix Entertainment game, and I won't on this channel. This is exclusively for Artix Entertainment. Thank goodness they have more than one game, because this does help me to branch out a bit. First advice I would give to people who are just starting out or someone who has a small channel is don't try to do things beyond your means. If you don't have a lot of money, you have a crappy laptop and a crappy microphone, make the content you can with the tools you have. There's a lot of free stuff you can use as well, or cheaper alternatives than going with things like Adobe Premiere or Photoshop. You don't need those things. You can go for crappier options, and I did. My very first video editor was VideoPad, and this has a lot of bugs and was very problematic. Constant crashes, and there was all kinds of things, and I used that editor for years only for one reason: it was cheap and I could afford it. For the screen recorder, I went with Bandicam, and guess what? I'm still using it to this day, and I love it. There are free options, of course, that you can use, like the OBS Studio. Back in 2022, I decided to upgrade from VideoPad, the editor, to Adobe. However, I do not have a lot of monthly income, so Adobe Premiere Elements 2022 was the package I went with. It was an expensive one-time payment package that I felt was worth it because it was a one-time payment. I didn't have to pay every year. I don't remember what microphone I first started out with, but it was this tiny little microphone that would sit on my laptop, and I could talk a distance away from it and you could hear my voice. It was not great, but I did finally upgrade to a Shure SM58, which is a dynamic microphone. The reason why I went with that is so that you wouldn't hear any of the fans, you wouldn't hear anything behind me. So if I had my roommate in, or if I had somebody else around in the background, or my cat was making noises or whatever, you wouldn't hear it, you would only hear me. The downside with a dynamic microphone is you can only hear it if you're right in front of it, so I literally have to talk with my mouth almost touching the friggin' thing. I have it hooked up through a Cakewalk audio interface, which is hooked into my computer, so it's a pretty basic setup. I also used this microphone because it does add a little bit of depth to my voice, and you can probably tell I have a rather higher pitched tone voice, so that's why I got this microphone, which would kind of add the bass a bit. When making YouTube content, there's a lot of things that count towards building your channel, one of which is your thumbnails. To make the thumbnail, I've used several different things over the years to create it, including Paint from, the Windows PC. You just get a Paint program. That was basically where I started, was making my thumbnails right out of the Paint thing. So it wasn't superly ideal. Now I use an online website called Canva. This is basically a free version of Photoshop, and it is impressive. Another website I use is cooltext.com. This is for my fonts. So you'd see different colored fonts that I use. This is using the cooltext.com website. There's also another website I used called photoroom.com. This has two tools that I use on here, one of which is the instant background remover, where you can put any photo into it and it will then remove the background automatically. There's also the magic eraser, which removes unwanted objects from your photo. Now, these are AI devised stuff, but they work pretty well, which is why I use it, because it's easy and simple. Most of my description and hashtags and stuff are already preset. However, if I make a video that is not something I usually do, or if it's different than what I kind of make, then I use ChatGPT to give me the SEO and the CTR. Now, what this does essentially is it could help with the algorithm on YouTube, providing you with a better description of what the video would have, or providing you with some hashtags. This is supposed to help with the click-through rate and the search engine, but I mean, it doesn't really work, or at least not for me. But again, this is probably because my content is so niche. And this is part of the problem of staying within one category. But that's not the biggest problem when you're in a tiny niche. The biggest problem is burnout, especially when you're focusing on only one game or only one type of thing. You can hit burnout pretty hard. And I have hit burnout multiple times over the years, including just this past summer. Now, it doesn't really help. I have medical problems right now, which is impacting my content. But I just realized I am now more further in this video than I've ever been in any other attempt in making this video. So maybe I can actually finish it this time. If you're just starting out and you don't really know what content you want to create, you're going to fail right away because you don't have the proper motivator. You need something that is going to motivate you to keep posting even when things get tough. And for me, that is the AE community. Another tip for people just starting out in YouTube, or again, people with small channels, consistency is very important. Again, because of complications in my life right now, I haven't been able to upload on a regular basis, or at least not as regular as I would like. And this definitely does impact your views as well as your growth. So above all else, consistency is one of the most important things. If you are capable of doing that, great. However, as I mentioned earlier, you don't want to sacrifice real life stuff, time. You are not paid for your time. One video can take you 6 hours to edit, or, I mean, it varies on the content that you're creating, but I could easily make this video. I have no idea how long this video is. Right now, I'm looking at 25 minutes I've been recording. I mean, this is also a lot of mistakes and stuff I'm putting in here, and I'm going to be chopping this down as short as I can possibly make it so that it's watchable. I'm going to be looking at a minimum of 2 hours just editing the audio and putting in a few different things. Probably it's going to be somewhere between 3 to 5 hours of editing in total, and this is not including making the thumbnail and setting up the ESO and the CTR and all the rest of it. If you're making YouTube content and you are a small channel like this one, you're not going to be getting paid for your hours. And I mean, maybe you'll be getting paid $2 an hour or something, but it's not going to be very much, especially if your video only hits a few hundred, which is what a lot of mine do. This goes back to the motivator. What made you start your YouTube channel? Why are you creating content? If you're creating it for money, well, then good luck. If you're creating it because you have something to say, or maybe because you love the people who are watching your content, this could be the sole motivator that is going to keep you going for years to come, which is exactly why I've been able to continue to do this, because again, this goes back to the Arctic's entertainment community. Number one, I do love the games, which is a huge motivator to play the games, but to create the content has nothing to do with playing the games. It's simply about helping the community and sharing with the community. At the end of the day, you have to enjoy some aspect of it. Now, I hate editing, but I've gotten pretty comfortable talking on the mic, and I'm a blabber. If anybody's ever been in the voice chat with me, you know that by now. Branding. This is actually really important. What happens is if you have a very generic name and then you tell somebody, maybe someone you've met on the street, oh yeah, I have a YouTube channel. Oh yeah, what's your name? Ryan. This is going to be really hard to find unless you're like super popular. But if you're not coming up first when you type in your name to Google or to YouTube, this is going to be difficult for other people to find your content as well. So branding is very important. When I created my name, there were other Gold Ravens. So I decided to go with Gold Raven AQ3D, largely because I was creating AQ3D content, solely only AQ3D content. When I decided to branch out to AQ World, I dropped the AQ3D. But because of that legacy, other people took that mantle and still to this day carry it, and that is awesome. Early on in my channel, I decided to create a marketable character, so I had Sculpin, an amazing artist on Twitter, create me this chibi I was able to use as my permanent mark. In fact, I actually hired an artist on Fiverr to create an animated intro, which in the long run became too long, and I actually had to edit it down myself, especially when I rebranded. Another tip, and this is kind of a mistake on my end, but you guys can learn from this. And it's not really a mistake, it's just a situational thing. I've collabed with multiple YouTubers or Twitch streamers, most of which are now defunct. So creating a collab video, it depends on where the video is. If you're doing a part 1, part 2 video, one on this channel, one on their channel, that's probably not a good idea unless you can guarantee that channel is never going to be deleted, which is unfortunately what has happened to me in multiple times. So this can be a good or bad thing. Collabing with someone else is not necessarily a bad thing if it can help you grow or if you can help them out. In the long run, it did kind of impact my channel in a negative way when people go, where's part 2 of this video? Now, this doesn't mean you should avoid collaborations. It just means tread carefully when collabing. Also, make sure that the people you collab with have the same agenda as you and not something different. Ultimately, the collaborations I did had nothing to do with my growth. It was simply about helping other AE content creators. So I do not regret my choice. Another thing that I would say is if you are trying to build up your channel, there's a lot of things you can do way better than what I do. And I mean, that would come right down to your thumbnails. You have to make really attractive thumbnails. You need to make attractive titles. Let me leave you with one final note. You need to love part of this. There has to be an aspect of YouTubing that you love. And for me, it's the feedback, it's the comments. If I see one person saying, thanks for this video, this really helped, even if only one person watched that video, I feel like I've made a difference, and to me, that is more than $1 million. I hope you guys have an awesome day. And one last tip I would say is, it doesn't hurt to have a catchphrase or something that is your own saying. Arctic Entertainment has a very popular saying, battle on, when they finish something. And for me, I took something different since a lot of the games involving AE have a lot of melee combat. So I end a lot of my videos saying, keep those swords swinging.